Bai Lu, a man who had just lost his job, was suddenly thrown into a horror game by a mysterious system. The moment he logged in, he landed in Siren Town, a hell mode dungeon, just when everyone thought he was absolutely doomed. His very next move left the entire audience staring in shock. In real life, Bai Lu had just been laid off. But deep in his bones, he carried an almost obsessive hunger for money, and it was that powerful obsession that caused a mysterious system to drag him into a deadly horror survival game. There was no warmth here, and no easy way out. Only grotesque monsters and bloodthirsty maniacs. There were also countless things that defied common sense. The only way for players to survive was to uncover every monster's fatal weakness and push through the entire storyline. Even more cruelly, every player's run would be broadcast in real time across countless small screens inside the player lobby. At the same time, besides completing missions issued by the system, players could also earn points through tips from other viewers. And those points could be exchanged for almost anything people dreamed of having in the real world. Other players were scared out of their minds inside the game, but for Bai Lu, horror games were exactly where he felt most in control. As soon as the dungeon finished loading, Bai Lu was instantly transported into a taxi heading towards Siren Town. This time, he was about to challenge a solo horror dungeon with the difficulty cranked all the way up. Meanwhile, in the rookie section of the game lobby, two players were chatting out of sheer boredom. When several small screens suddenly lit up, they immediately knew that another batch of new players had entered the game. One of them joked that he wondered how many days these rookies would manage to last. But the moment the other player glanced across the screens, his expression turned serious. Look at that background. Isn't that the Siren Town dungeon? That place is famous for being hell difficulty. Last time, 100 players went in, and only one came out alive. The player beside him nodded, saying that watching rookies get scared out of their wits was honestly pretty entertaining. But the second he finished speaking, both of their eyes suddenly locked onto one particular screen. The mockery on their faces vanished, replaced instantly by shock. Because the new player on that screen actually had a maxed out sanity level of 100. And everyone knew that the last rookie who entered with a perfect sanity score was now firmly ranked in the top 10 on the total points leaderboard. This mysterious newcomer instantly caught the attention of everyone watching in the lobby. At that moment, Bai Lu had already entered the game's storyline. His identity in the game was a rich heir who had made a bet with his romantic rival, Andre, and stubbornly headed to Siren Town, with the bet centered on winning over the female lead, Lucy. Even though he had the identity of a rich heir, Bai Lu's clothes looked no different from what he wore in real life. The only unusual thing was the coin necklace hanging around his neck. Just as Bai Lu was studying the necklace, a sweet voice suddenly came from the front seat. "My little sweetheart, you're finally awake. You've been asleep ever since we got in the car." The moment he reached out and touched the necklace, the game interface popped up, clearly showing that this was the game's exclusive management tool. Bai Lu looked up, and a character profile window instantly appeared. The girl in front of him was NPC Lucy, his classmate. She was warm, outgoing, and for some reason, she was especially into boys like him. But according to the game's setting, this rich kid was painfully shy and uncomfortable around Lucy, who was 10 centimeters taller than him, and far too enthusiastic. So, Bai Lu simply changed the subject and asked with feigned confusion, "Where are we? We're out in the middle of nowhere." The moment he said that, Andre, who was sitting beside him, let out a cold snort and mocked. "Looks like a certain coward wants to run away again. Too bad, we're already on our way to Siren Town." Andre was also an NPC, and according to the game's setting, he was Bai Lu's romantic rival. He had confessed to Lucy before and failed, so he took all his anger out on Bai Lu. But Bai Lu did not bother responding to Andre's provocation at all. Instead, he turned to the other stranger in the front seat and asked what kind of place Siren Town really was. The man immediately became excited and started explaining non-stop. Siren Town was the only coastal town in history where the remains of a sea monster had ever been discovered. His name was Jeffrey, and he was a fanatic obsessed with mermaids, sea monsters, and other unnatural creatures. This time, he had voluntarily tagged along with them to the town. But his ridiculous speech only made Andre, sitting in the back, more and more irritated. Jeffrey continued, saying that over the years, many tourists had claimed to see the figure of the siren here, hear the enchanting songs of mermaids, and some had even witnessed mermaid-like sea monsters swallowing humans alive. Andre smeared in disdain. "Isn't that just some gimmick the town made up to scam tourists? I can't believe people actually fall for it." Jeffrey gave a sinister smile. "Then how do you explain the tourists who kept mysteriously disappearing after coming here? The police searched the entire town and the surrounding waters, but they couldn't even find a trace of them. Andre stubbornly argued that maybe they had simply fallen into the water and drowned. Jeffrey immediately cut him off, his voice carrying an eerie chill. The police dragged the waters for an entire month and didn't find a single corpse. That is not normal. Unless, of course, their bodies were all eaten by the siren. Those words completely enraged Andre. He rushed forward and slammed his fist into Jeffrey's face, yelling at him to shut up. Lucy was so frightened that she quickly got up to stop them, afraid the conflict would spiral out of control. Bai Lu, however, quietly watched everything from the side. In his eyes, Andre casually hitting and insulting Jeffrey was probably nothing new. And Jeffrey insisting on coming to Siren Town with them was definitely not just because of his hobby. More likely, he wanted to use the mermaid legend to carry out a revenge plan he'd been preparing for a long time. After a long, bumpy ride, the group finally arrived at Siren Town late at night. There were barely any pedestrians on the streets, but every person they saw looked strangely unnatural, like soulless, walking corpses. The sight instantly drained all color from Lucy's face. She hurriedly hid beside Bai Lu and asked him to protect her. Bai Lu calmly pushed her away without making a scene. Soon, the taxi stopped in front of the only 5-star hotel in town. The hotel was decorated with extreme luxury, but in front of it stood a disturbingly strange mermaid fountain. As everyone got out of the car, the driver deliberately warned them, "Be careful of the people outside. They've been short on money lately. Seeing how well-dressed you are, some of them might get bad ideas." Bai Lu did not pay much attention to it and walked straight toward the hotel lobby. As he passed by the mermaid fountain, he casually glanced at the mermaid statue on it. Its eyes had actually moved ever so slightly. Jeffrey, standing nearby, also noticed something was wrong. He immediately pointed it out, but Lucy and Andre looked completely unconvinced. Andre even snapped at him, "If you keep freaking out over nothing, don't blame me if I lose my temper." Lucy chimed in as well, saying that the mermaid statue did not even have real eyes, so there was no way they can move. Jeffrey must have been seeing things. But Jeffrey was unusually firm. "Haven't you noticed? From the moment we got out of the car, no matter which angle we walk to, it keeps staring straight at us. Its eyes are definitely moving." Lucy finally relaxed and said dismissively, "I thought it was something serious. Isn't it just like the Mona Lisa's smile? No matter where you stand, it feels like it's looking at you." Bai Liu, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke with absolute certainty. That kind of visual effect only works on a 2-dimensional surface. In 3-dimensional space, it's impossible. Jeffrey was right. The wax statue's eyes had been following them the entire time. Bai Lu knew very well that according to the usual rules of horror games, this seemingly ordinary statue was definitely a hidden monster. Right at that moment, another system notification popped up. "Congratulations, player. You have unlocked the monster book. Explore and complete monster information entries. Depending on the dungeon's difficulty, players could receive matching rewards, and if they completed every monster book page in a single dungeon, they could even take away the most valuable item owned by one of that dungeon's monsters." The monster book also clearly listed each monster's attack values and attack methods. It was basically encouraging players to actively investigate monsters, and even provoke them. At that moment, the driver smiled and cut off their argument. "Mermaid statues are one of our town's specialties. They're everywhere. If they really moved, we would have all run away long ago. It's getting late, so head back to your rooms and get some rest. You'll need your energy if you want to enjoy yourselves tomorrow." But the smile on the driver's face carried a kind of eeriness that was impossible to describe. That smile scared Lucy so badly that she threw herself into Bai Lu's arms again. But the moment they stepped into the hotel lobby, an even stranger sight appeared. The hall was packed with all kinds of mermaid statues. They were so densely arranged that the whole place felt chilling. Bai Lu walked over to the front desk to check in. Lucy, however, stared at the front desk manager in surprise. "Why is your skin so pale? You look exactly like a wax figure." The manager immediately lowered his head and said, "I was born with albinism. Please excuse me. The fees for the 4 rooms you reserved a week ago have already been fully paid." Bai Lu took the room key, but instead of leaving right away, he stared at the statue behind the manager and asked, "You really have a lot of different mermaid statues here. Why does the one behind you look exactly like you?" The manager nodded. "We all shape mermaid statues to look like ourselves and use them as protective charms, letting them ward off disasters in our place." The moment Bai Liu heard the words protective charm, another system prompt appeared. The mermaid statue panel had been updated, and the monster's name was now listed as protective charm statue, with its current state marked as cocoon. Bai Lu thought to himself that this was getting interesting. The statue in the fountain earlier had probably only been in some kind of not yet fully emerged state. Since this one was labeled as being in a cocoon state, and the front desk manager had described it as a shell capable of blocking harm, then these mermaid statues most likely also had larvae and butterfly forms waiting to appear later. At the moment, this cocoon state did not seem to show any signs of actively attacking, but Bai Lu still did not dare let his guard down. Their attack method was very likely some form of hidden mental contamination, and he simply had not noticed it yet. At that moment, Lucy blushed and suggested sharing a room with Bai Lu, only to be rejected on the spot. He was not so desperate that he needed Lucy to prove his courage for him. Those words instantly irritated the overly sensitive Andre, who angrily dragged Lucy away. Bai Lu, on the other hand, let out a quiet sigh of relief and even thanked Andre on purpose, though inwardly he could only hope the man would make it through the night alive. After that, Bai Lu returned to his own room, but the second he walked in, he froze completely. The room was filled with mermaid statues. Every single one of them looked elegant and lifelike. But Bai Lu could not shake the feeling that these statues were staring right back at him. He knew very well that in horror games, the first night was always the most dangerous, and also the one with the highest death rate. Bai Lu looked into the mirror and saw the cold, eerie expression on his own face. It sent a chill straight down his spine. So he immediately found a white cloth and covered the mirror completely. But right after that, Bai Lu noticed something was wrong. The texture of those statues was nothing like wax. Instead, they felt like cold, slimy sea fish. And ever since he entered the room, a faint fishy smell had been lingering in the air. There was no way that smell had been brought in from the car. Bai Lu instantly concluded that there was definitely something wrong with the mermaid statues in the room. To be safe, he gathered every piece of cloth he could find and covered all the statues in the room completely. Only after doing all that did he finally feel a little more at ease and lie down on the bed to get some rest. Right then, the system notification sounded again, reminding the player that entering deep sleep could restore stamina. But the moment Bai Lu drifted into sleep, the mermaid statues covered by white cloth inside the room actually began to move slowly. Step by step, they crept silently toward the bed. Immediately after that, a main mission window suddenly appeared. Please survive safely inside the room until dawn, and do not allow the incubating monsters to complete their incubation. Bai Lu shot up from the bed, and the sight in front of him made his pupils shrink. Many of the statues had already broken free from the white cloth and gathered around the bed. Even the mermaid mirror that had originally been leaning against the corner had been moved right in front of him. In the mirror, Bai Lu's own reflection had become twisted and disturbingly strange. He instantly confirmed that these statues were all living things capable of moving freely, except their movements were restricted by certain rules. Only after he fell asleep, and only after their coverings were broken free, could they truly approach him. Once Bai Lu figured that out, he immediately took action. He found some rope. Then he tied every statue up as tightly as possible. After that, he threw all of them into the storage room. Only after finishing all this did Bai Lu finally feel slightly more at ease. But just as he was about to go back to sleep, a faint sound of footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. Bai Lu looked through the peephole. It was actually Jeffrey, sneaking around the hallway and glancing everywhere. Bai Lu had no idea what he was trying to do in the middle of the night. But before Bai Lu could figure it out, Jeffrey suddenly vanished. In his place, a mermaid statue was slowly approaching the door. Bai Lu immediately locked the door. But the statue leaned right up to the peephole and stared straight into the room. Bai Lu pressed his back against the door and hooked a piece of cloth nearby with his foot, preparing himself in advance. At that moment, the mermaid statue outside began hammering at the door like crazy, and the heavy impacts made the entire door tremble. Meanwhile, Bai Lu's game footage was being broadcast live on the screen in the rookie lobby. Countless players were watching the situation inside the Siren Town dungeon, while the other rookies were suffering through even more miserable encounters. Some mermaid statues would pretend to leave, tricking players into lowering their guard, then suddenly return for the kill, pushing the player's sanity straight to zero. A player named Leo had fallen into that exact trap. Unable to find the statue's weakness, he ended up becoming monster food. The players in the lobby started discussing it. I knew it. Almost no one can clear the Siren Town dungeon. But another player had a different opinion. Look at that rookie with the perfect sanity score. Even at a time like this, he's still calm. At that moment, Bai Lu listened to the statue hammering wildly outside the door, while his mind raced at full speed. He firmly believed that no horror game was truly unsolvable. The method to break the statue's threat had to be hidden in the earlier details. The first clue was the mermaid in the fountain outside the hotel. watching them through the surface of the water. The second clue was in the hotel lobby. When Bai Lu looked at the mermaid statues there, they did not move. The third clue was inside the room. Only the mermaid statues, whose white cloth had fallen off, were able to move. Water surfaces, mirrors, and the state of sleep. All the clues connected in Bai Lu's mind at that moment, and in an instant, Bai Lu found the true fatal weakness of these monsters. By now, the pounding outside the door was getting more and more violent, but Bai Lu remained completely calm as he slowly turned the doorknob. He was actually about to open the door directly. The players watching from the rookie lobby were stunned, all wondering if this guy had lost his mind. The mermaid statue was right outside the door. Wasn't he basically walking right into his own death? They had finally found a rookie with real potential, and now he was acting this recklessly. What a waste. But, in the very next second, everyone froze. The mermaid statue that had been hammering at the door went still the instant Bai Lu opened the door and met its eyes. It was completely locked in place. A cold smile tugged at the corner of Bai Lu's mouth. Everything was exactly as he had predicted. The weakness of these mermaid statues was direct human eye contact. Right then, another system window popped up, notifying Bai Lu that the mermaid statue panel had been updated. The monster names were now listed as Pupa State Mermaid Statue and Cocoon State Protective Charm Statue. Their weakness was direct human eye contact, and their attack method was incubation. It was exactly what Bai Lu had guessed. As long as they escaped human sight, these seemingly motionless statues would start moving in secret. That was why they had surrounded him after he fell asleep. But Bai Lu had quickly figured out the loophole in the rules. If he looked at them through a peephole, water surface, mirror, or anything similar, the restriction on their movement would be much weaker. Only face-to-face eye contact with no obstruction at all could fully suppress them. Even if most rookies were lucky enough to guess this weakness, they would never dare bet their lives on it. They would only hide behind the door and stare through the peephole, then watch helplessly as the statue broke in and turned them into monster food. But this time, Bai Lu had won the gamble. In the live broadcast lobby, every player who saw this scene could hardly believe their eyes. They all started talking at once, asking how this rookie had done it, and why a hell difficulty dungeon looked like easy mode in his hands. While everyone was still lost in shock, a series of new system notifications rang out, announcing that 168 people had watched Bai Lu's small screen, successfully unlocking the Rookie 100 viewer achievement. At the same time, he received tip points from 3 players and successfully unlocked the game's shop. Bai Lu checked the product list, and sure enough, 2 rare items were displayed there: an intact heart and a love at first sight potion. It looked like the system had not lied. As long as he had enough points, he really could buy anything he wanted. But the moment Bai Lu tried to exchange for them, the system rejected him, stating that he did not have enough points to purchase any item. With no other choice, Bai Lu closed the system interface and glanced at the cracked doorknob. He was quietly startled. These statues really did have terrifying destructive power. However, he had also figured out their weakness. They seemed to rely only on vision to locate targets, with no hearing or sense of smell at all. Otherwise, they would not have gone through the trouble of tearing off the white cloth in the room and searching blindly for him. After that, Bai Lu walked into the storage room. Looking at the mermaid statues he had tied up so tightly that they could not move, he realized he had to deal with them quickly. Leaving them here would always be like keeping a ticking time bomb nearby. As he looked at the statues now completely at his mercy, a bold idea, one that perfectly matched Bai Lu's profit-driven logic, suddenly surfaced in his mind. He could use one of them for an experiment. Try burning it with fire, or smashing it with something, or even crushing it directly, just to see if he could uncover their true fatal weakness. But, just as Bai Lu was about to act, another system window appeared, warning that if a player directly attacked this monster and failed to kill it in one hit, the monster would permanently lock its aggro onto the player and hunt them down from that point on. Bai Lu's gaze darkened, and he immediately gave up the idea of attacking first. At the same time, a new plan quickly formed in his mind. Since taking the initiative was so risky, then if the monster happened to suffer an accident on its own, that would have nothing to do with him. So, Bai Lu wrapped the mermaid statue at the door tightly and began moving it outward bit by bit. This move left the players in the live broadcast lobby completely confused. None of them understood why this player was not killing the monster or hiding from it, but instead messing around with it. What they did not know was that this was exactly Bai Lu's calculation. Smashing the mermaid statue himself was too risky. If something crawled out from inside, that would be a real problem. But if the statue had poor eyesight and accidentally fell down the stairs by itself, then that had nothing to do with Bai Lu. But what Bai Lu never expected was that after the statue crashed down from the top of the stairs, it was not damaged at all. Bai Lu immediately reached a conclusion. Physical attacks were completely useless against mermaid statues. When the players in the live broadcast lobby saw this, they actually began to pity the statue Bai Lu was tormenting. They joked that this rookie was less like a player and more like a bandit. Everyone else entered the game trying desperately to survive, but he was trying to make the monsters fail to survive instead. But this test also confirmed another one of Bai Lu's guesses. He had clearly been watching the statue, yet it was still able to move. This meant the visual weakness of the mermaid statues was not simply being seen by human eyes. They were only restricted when the statue itself believed it was being directly watched by a human. Bai Lu had already gathered enough information for the night, so he was just about to return to his room and rest. But the moment he turned around, he saw two familiar figures. It was Jeffrey and the taxi driver. Jeffrey was tightly clutching a stack of money, and the two of them were huddled together suspiciously, clearly carrying out some kind of secret transaction. Bai Lu's heart tightened at once, and he immediately pulled out the coin necklace around his neck. After triggering the system manager, the driver's character profile instantly appeared. He was Jeffrey's privately hired taxi driver and had multiple criminal records, including arson and robbery. Bai Lu had not expected that this man was also an NPC with a hidden identity. No wonder Jeffrey had kept finding ways to stop Bai Lu from interacting with the driver on the way to the town, from suddenly switching seats to deliberately screaming and causing trouble after they got out of the car. It seemed they had been up to no good from the very beginning, and the danger in Siren Town was far more terrifying than the mermaid statues. The real crisis had clearly only just begun. Just as Bai Lu turned back to his room after catching Jeffrey in the act, an urgent system notification suddenly rang out. Congratulations, player. You have successfully activated Jeffrey's bloody conspiracy side plot. Complete the full side plot to receive a reward of 50 points. Current side plot exploration progress, 15%. Bai Lu stared at the system prompt while rapidly sorting through the clues in his mind. Jeffrey was dressed plainly and did not look wealthy at all, yet he had given the driver a large sum of money. Combined with Bai Lu's in-game identity as a rich heir, this entire trip to Siren Town had been paid for by him. Jeffrey had only come along under Bai Lu's name. He had a guilty conscience from the start, which was why he kept trying to stop Bai Lu from contacting the driver. That was no coincidence. He was afraid his shady deal would be exposed on the spot. The driver's earlier warning had not been kind advice at all. It was clearly a smug provocation after committing something dirty. It seemed this driver with a criminal record was an accomplice Jeffrey had hired with money, and the two of them had planned something vicious long before this. Jeffrey taking the risk of coming out in the middle of the night to hand over money probably meant the driver had pushed him into a corner. He must have been terrified that if he was even one step too late, his secret would be exposed. Just as Bai Lu was thinking through the key clues of the side plot, faint footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. He carefully walked to the door and looked out through the peephole. Jeffrey was crouching low, sneaking over to the door of Andre's room next door, while looking around cautiously. After confirming that no one was there, he quickly placed something in front of the door. Bai Lu focused his eyes and saw that it was actually a piece of raw fish. After Jeffrey finished doing all this, he immediately slipped back into his own room without making a sound. Before long, that fishy smell began spreading through the hallway, and it accurately attracted several mermaid statues. They moved with stiff, unnatural steps, and slowly gathered around Andre's door. Seeing this strange and dangerous scene, Bai Lu did not dare let his guard down at all. He immediately found a white cloth and covered his own door completely. Then he dragged over a solid wooden chest from the room and firmly blocked the door with it. Bai Lu thought that this should finally make things a little safer. If a mermaid statue really broke in during the night, at least it would make some noise first. Right then, the system thoughtfully sent another reminder. The player's stamina had been depleted. Sleep could restore stamina. After struggling through the entire night, Bai Lu was truly exhausted, both mentally and physically. So he lay down on the bed and slowly fell asleep while staying on guard. Fortunately, no statues came to disturb him again that night, and he safely made it through the first night of the Hell-level dungeon. Early the next morning, noises coming from the storage room woke Bai Lu up. He got up and opened the storage room door. The mermaid statues he had tied up tightly last night had all broken free from the ropes. Bai Lu slammed the door shut, but there was no frustration on his face, only impatience. Clearly, simply tying them up only treated the symptom, not the root problem. If he could not find a way to fully restrain them, Repeating the same method would only allow them to slowly adapt. Bai Lu walked back to the room door and pulled down the white cloth covering it, only to find that the hallway was already empty of statues. The moment he opened the door, the system notification suddenly rang out, its wording even carrying a hint of congratulations. Player Bai Lu has successfully completed the main mission, survived the night safely, and avoided being hardened. Reward, 20 points. Current total balance, 23 points. Item purchase access unlocked. Bai Lu did not hesitate at all and immediately opened the system shop. First, he spent 15 points on a high-powered flashlight. With the remaining 8 points, he bought 3 discounted 3-dimensional projectors. When this scene was broadcast live to the rookie player lobby, it instantly drew mockery and disdain from the crowd. The watching players all started talking, saying this rookie must be insane. 23 points was currently the highest score in the rookie area, and even a random flaming torch would be a god-tier weapon against the mermaid statues. But this rookie had chosen to buy flashy but useless projectors instead. In their eyes, he was wasting points and walking straight into death. Some even pulled up the weakness listed in the monster book, saying that images created by projectors did not count as true human eye contact, and trying to fool the mermaid statues with something like that would never last half a day. Because of this confusing move, the viewer count on Bai Lu's small screen plummeted from over 200 people to just over 30. His tit points dropped directly to 0. But Bai Lu did not care at all. Carrying the items he had just bought, he went straight to Jeffrey's door. After the door opened, Bai Lu acted as if nothing was wrong and made casual small talk with him. But his gaze quietly swept across Jeffrey's room, and he instantly noticed something was off. Inside Jeffrey's room stood a mermaid statue, and its face looked somewhat similar to Jeffrey's. On top of that, a faint fishy smell lingered in the room, like something was slowly rotting. Seeing Bai Lu staring into the room, Jeffrey quickly asked him what was wrong. Bai Lu calmly withdrew his gaze, shook his head, and said it was nothing. Then he casually asked, "Lucy and Andre should be awake too, right? I'll go call them so we can have breakfast together." But when it was time to eat, the scene in front of Bai Lu made his expression instantly darken. The table was filled with food, but every single dish gave off a sharp rotten stench of dead fish. Bai Lu pinched his nose, unable to work up even the slightest appetite. But when he looked at Jeffrey, Lucy, and Andre beside him, they were eating in huge mouthfuls, as if they could not smell the stench at all. Their expressions looked numb and bizarre, as if these rotten dishes were some kind of heavenly delicacy. Right then, another system window popped up, and the warning in the text made Bai Lu's heart tighten. NPCs Jeffrey, Lucy, and Andre are experiencing a continuous drop in sanity. Their bodies have entered the mutation stage. Bai Lu stared at the 3 NPCs, devouring the food, then thought of the mermaid statues in their rooms that were starting to resemble them more and more. In that instant, he understood everything. The real crisis was no longer the mermaid statues outside the door. It was the familiar companions beside him, who were slowly turning into monsters. And Jeffrey's bloody conspiracy had only just revealed the tip of the iceberg. The strangeness at the dining table continued. Lucy stabbed a piece of rotten-smelling fish with her fork and brought it in front of Bai Lu, her eyes filled with obsession. "Baby, why aren't you eating? The fish here is so delicious." Bai Lu calmly shook his head and followed the rich air persona assigned to him by the game. "Your figure is already perfect. I'd hate to see you ruin that beauty over a piece of fish steak. Let's just have some vegetables." That gentle sentence instantly made Lucy blush. But across the table, Andre let out a cold snort, his voice full of mockery. "What's wrong? Is our rich young master running out of money? Before coming here, you said you'd cover food and lodging, and now you can't even bear to let us eat a fish steak." Lucy sure picked herself one stingy boyfriend. That provocation instantly enraged Lucy. She shot to her feet and snapped back. "Andre, watch your mouth. If it weren't for Bai Lu, do you think you could stay in this 5-star hotel or eat this high-end fish steak? Look at how much you've eaten. Without him paying the bill, you wouldn't even be able to walk out of the hotel." Andre gritted his teeth, but because he liked Lucy, he did not dare lose his temper at her. So he could only turn all his anger toward Bai Lu, clenching his fist and raising it as if he was about to swing. Bai Lu's gaze stayed calm as he said lightly, "If you still want me to pay for you, you better not touch me." That sentence hit Andre's weak spot perfectly, and he could only pull his fist back in frustration. But right at that moment, a small piece of fish slipped from Jeffrey's hand. It landed directly on Andre's sneaker. Jeffrey quickly lowered his head and apologized. But Andre, who had nowhere else to vent his anger, would never let this chance go. Without another word, he started punching and kicking Jeffrey. He beat Jeffrey so hard that the food Jeffrey had just eaten came spilling back out. Lucy was frightened and rushed forward to stop him, but but she could not hold back the furious Andre at all. Bai Lu simply watched coldly from the side. His gaze landed on what Jeffrey had vomited, and his pupils instantly shrank. What Jeffrey had eaten was clearly golden fish steak, but what he vomited out were chunks of black, foul-smelling rotten meat. Combining this with all the strange signs from earlier, Bai Lu instantly confirmed that large native sea monsters naturally preferred rotten dead fish. The 3 NPCs in front of him were already not far from complete mutation. After breakfast, the taxi driver from last night arrived right on time to take them sightseeing around the town. But the moment Bai Lu got into the car, a thick, rotten fishy stench rushed into his face, even sharper than the smell in the hotel room. Bai Lu was silently on guard when the system window suddenly appeared. As long as the player completes the main missions of touring the Siren Wax Museum and participating in the Mermaid Fishing Festival, each mission will reward 50 points. Bai Lu quietly calculated in his heart. These 2 missions looked like ordinary tourist activities, but in reality, they were definitely hiding deadly traps. Bai Lu was just about to ask the driver for more details when Jeffrey suddenly rushed into the car in a panic. Seeing how flustered he looked, Bai Lu immediately remembered the bloody conspiracy side plot involving Jeffrey that he had triggered last night. Jeffrey had bribed the driver with money, which made it obvious that he wanted Andre dead. He simply had not found the right moment to act yet. For now, Bai Lu could only bide his time and continue pushing the main mission forward. He calmly asked the driver what special attractions the town had. The driver casually answered that tourists who came here had to see the night fishing event and the town museum. That matched Bai Lu's expectations perfectly, so he continued asking what made those 2 attractions so special. But just then, his gaze accidentally landed on the sandwich in the driver's hand. Only then did Bai Lu suddenly realize that the rotten fishy smell inside the car was not coming from Andre at all. It was coming from the driver, and the stench was so strong, it was almost nauseating. Bai Lu's heart tightened. For a moment, he instinctively thought the driver had already turned into a monster. But, in the next second, a crimson warning window blocked his vision, telling him that his identification was incorrect. This NPC was only in a mutated state, not a monster, and could not be recorded in the monster book. At the same time, the NPC's trust toward the player had sharply decreased, and he could attack at any moment. Before Bai Lu could react, the driver suddenly turned his head and glared at him with vicious eyes. "You think I stink, don't you? You rich people really are born arrogant." In that instant, the atmosphere inside the car turned ice cold. Bai Lu knew he could not keep asking questions directly, so he quickly gave Lucy a look. Lucy immediately understood and put on a sweet, adorable expression. She asked softly, "Sir, are all the town's attractions related to mermaids? What exactly makes them special?" Faced with Lucy's polite attitude, the driver's expression eased a little. "Our night fishing is not about catching ordinary sea fish. It's a mermaid fishing event held late at night. And the wax museum is not an ordinary wax museum either. Every wax figure inside was made from a captured mermaid. The first complete mermaid ever caught is hidden there." Lucy pretended to be surprised and asked, "Can people really catch mermaids?" The driver nodded. Aside from the first perfect mermaid, most of the ones caught later were defective and low quality. But they were all real mermaids, no doubt about it. Andre, sitting in the front, looked completely disdainful and mocked it as nothing more than a tourist gimmick made up by the town. Then he turned to Bai Lu, his eyes full of provocation. "Certain people had better not forget our bet. Don't use the night fishing event as an excuse to run away. If you fall into the sea and get turned into a mermaid wax figure, we won't save you." Only then did Bai Lu suddenly remember what Lucy had complained to him about that morning. She had told Bai Lu that this whole thing was Andre's fault. He had forced Bai Lu into that stupid bet, saying that if Bai Lu did not dare spend the night at sea in a canoe, then he did not deserve Lucy. Lucy told him, "You don't need to prove that at all." Bai Lu knew very well that the ocean at night was already dangerous, and on top of that, he could not swim. Seawater was his fatal weakness. If Andre secretly played dirty, he could flip Bai Lu's boat at any moment and send him straight to the bottom of the sea. This was an unnecessary risk from the start. But when Andre saw Bai Lu hesitate, his mockery became even sharper. "What's wrong, rich boy? You don't even have this much courage? Judging by that look on your face, are you planning to give up on Lucy already?" The moment he finished speaking, the system notification rang out again, informing Bai Lu that he had triggered the side mission Boat of True Love. Before leaving Siren Town, the player must complete the bet and defeat Andre. Reward, 100 points. Seeing such a high reward, Bai Lu, who had originally been planning to give up, his gaze instantly turned completely resolute. "I'm taking this bet." Andre looked stunned, unable to understand why Bai Lu, who had been so calm just moments ago, had suddenly become so forceful. What he did not know was that this seemingly ridiculous bet had already been included in Bai Lu's overall plan to clear the dungeon. But just as the car turned toward the seaside, Lucy suddenly cried out, "Honey, look! Those fishermen look so strange." Bai Lu followed her gaze and saw that the fishermen barely looked human at all. They looked more like bizarre deep-sea fish wearing human shapes. What lay scattered across the ground was even more horrifying. Those were clearly pieces of mermaid bones. Siren Town was clearly hiding a terrifying setting: incubation and mutation. The mermaid statues could be incubated and activated, while Andre had already been in a mutated state that morning. These villagers were obviously in the same stage of transformation, which was why they looked neither fully human nor fully fish. It was not hard to guess that the final result of incubation and mutation was complete transformation into monsters. Lucy trembled in fear. The driver feigned a calm tone to comfort her. "No need to be scared. People in our town are all like this. It's just because we eat a lot of fish. After all, only the fish from Siren Town can truly be called delicious." Those words instantly stirred Lucy's appetite. Remembering the delicious fish she had eaten at breakfast, she immediately forgot her fear and kept praising how unbelievably fresh the fish here tasted. But the driver shook his head with a strange expression. "The fish in Siren Town is delicious, yes, but the secret was never freshness. What you ate was a special kind of fish, a fish that belongs only to Siren Town." Lucy's curiosity was instantly hooked, and she pressed him. "What kind of fish is it?" A strange smile suddenly appeared on the driver's face. "Mermaid." The moment he said that, everyone in the car froze. Seeing their reactions, the driver quickly changed his tone and said he was only joking. "How could we possibly eat mermaids? It's just a local specialty fish. During the day, you can just tour the wax museum. The fishing event only happens at night." Before they knew it, the taxis soon arrived at the wax museum, but everyone was still stuck on that so-called joke. As if the breakfast they had eaten really had been made from mermaids. The wax museum building looked grand, but its outer walls were worn and crumbling, giving off a deeply eerie atmosphere. But the moment they got out of the car, a system window suddenly appeared. Siren Wax Museum scene unlocked. Immediately after that, an old newspaper was blown straight onto Bai Lu's face. He picked it up and saw that it was actually a missing tourist notice. It clearly stated that 20 people had already gone missing in the town. At the bottom, there was even a friendly reminder: "Do not play with large fish. Beware of falling into the water." Bai Lu pinched the newspaper between his fingers and noticed that the paper felt unusually stiff, as if several layers had been glued tightly together. He was just about to find some warm water to separate it when another system window appeared. Side mission triggered. Find warm water inside the wax museum and separate the stuck newspaper pages. Completion reward, 10 points. Bai Lu quietly followed behind the others. The moment they entered the wax museum, they ran into the museum guard. From the guard, they learned that ever since a series of incidents happened last month, tourists had stopped coming to the town, and no new mermaid wax figures had been sent into the museum for a long time. Lucy was so frightened that she immediately hid behind Bai Lu. Bai Lu, however, pretended to be curious and asked, "Why haven't any new wax figures been sent in? Is it because there are no tourists?" The guard nodded. "Without tourists, we rarely hold large-scale fishing events. They take too much time and effort. If no one catches mermaids, then naturally there are no new wax figures." But halfway through speaking, he suddenly stopped. No matter how Bai Lu pressed him, the guard refused to say another word. This was probably a restriction set on the NPC, so Bai Lu changed the question. "The wax museum's capacity should be limited, right? You can't keep stuffing new wax figures inside forever." The guard shook his head. "However many new wax figures enter, the same number of old wax figures leave the Siren Wax Museum. This place can never be filled." Bai Lu froze for a moment, and his curiosity was completely hooked. What did "never filled" mean? Were the old wax figures thrown back into the sea after leaving? And what exactly happened after tourists arrived? The guard was clearly getting impatient. He turned away and answered perfunctorily, "Anything can happen. You will have a pleasant vacation in Siren Town." Bai Lu wanted to keep asking, but Lucy interrupted him. "Baby, come look at this." Following her gaze, Bai Lu saw a golden statue standing before them. According to the inscription beneath the statue, after the town recovered mermaid bones from the sea, this man was the one who pushed for the construction of the wax museum and vigorously developed the tourism industry. Lucy instantly became like a little fangirl, praising Mayor Harris for his bold vision, saying that he seized the opportunity, changed the town's fate, and cared deeply for the villagers. Bai Lu, however, said nothing. His eyes remained fixed on the strangely shaped statue of Mayor Harris. Was he really as kind as he appeared? What terrifying truth was hidden behind the constant disappearance of the wax figures? And what secret of Siren Town would this old, stuck-together newspaper reveal? Next, Bai Lu would continue digging into the ultimate conspiracy behind Siren Town. This European-style building was already worn and decayed, with a suffocating gloom hanging over every corner. Yet the statue of Mayor Harris in the center of the lobby had been polished, spotless. Bai Lu studied the inscription beneath the statue carefully. And Jeffrey and Andre also came closer. But the expression on Jeffrey's face was unusually complicated, with undisguised fear hidden deep in his eyes. He suddenly asked Bai Lu, "Do you really believe mermaids exist? Do you think all those strange legends circulating in Siren Town are true?" Bai Lu sneered inwardly. These so-called legends were nothing more than exaggerated stories the town had deliberately made up to boost tourism. They were mostly just half-truths at best. But he did not say what he really thought. Instead, he turned and glanced at Andre beside him. Bai Lu could clearly tell that Andre did not believe in ghosts, gods, or legends at all. But this was a deadly horror game dungeon. So Bai Lu simply nodded along and acknowledged the legends as true. Andre, who had remained silent the whole time, kept his face dark and said nothing. At that moment, Lucy took the initiative to hold Bai Lu's hand, wanting to lead him deeper into the exhibition hall. But Bai Lu knew very well that there was something even more important he needed to do right now. So he walked straight up to the museum guard and asked where the hot water room was. The guard slowly lifted his head and pointed toward the area at the very end of the dark, deep hallway. That place was so dark, it was practically impossible to see a hand in front of your face. And it clearly looked like it might be hiding unknown danger. Timid as she was, Lucy still forced herself to say she wanted to go with Bai Lu. Bai Lu gently turned down her offer and told her he would be back soon. But just after Bai Lu had taken 2 steps, the guard suddenly called out to stop him, wearing a sinister smile that made the skin crawl. He deliberately reminded Bai Lu that a large number of mermaid statues were piled up at the end of the hallway. He told him to be careful not to knock them over before stepping into the hot water room area. Bai Lu instantly understood that the guard's reminder was not a kind warning at all, but a naked death warning. That entire area was packed with mermaid statues in all kinds of forms. Yet their poses were strangely consistent, every single one of them turning its head toward the window, as if they were all desperate to escape this cage. Bai Lu continued moving forward at a steady pace. But then, a dense patter of light footsteps suddenly reached his ears. He became alert in an instant, then whipped his head around. The mermaid statues that had originally been standing still had all silently followed behind him. Bai Lu knew very well what their weakness was. As long as his eyes stayed locked on them, they would freeze in place, as if nailed to the ground. But the moment Bai Lu closed his eyes, or even blinked for an instant, they would immediately lunge at him. Fortunately, the statues were not especially fast. As long as he controlled the timing of his blinks precisely and kept moving in a steady rhythm, he could temporarily avoid their deadly pursuit. This hall was a typical European-style structure, and the load-bearing columns standing throughout the room were perfect cover. Bai Lu immediately used the columns to create visual blind spots, disrupting the statue's pursuit pattern and temporarily shaking off the group of eerie monsters. But a new danger followed right after. Bai Lu suddenly realized that the faces of these mermaid statues were slowly beginning to change. The closer they got to him, the more their faces started to resemble his. Taking advantage of the brief moment when the statues were blocked off, Bai Lu quickly found the hot water pool. He calmly took out the old newspaper that had been stuck together and gently placed it into the hot water to soak and soften. This way, he could not only separate the newspaper and unlock its hidden clues, but also collect the 10-point system reward on the spot. But while Bai Lu was focused on uncovering the clue, the dense footsteps behind him were already closing in silently and rapidly. In the blink of an eye, all those mermaid statues wearing copies of Bai Lu's face had already moved around the columns and surrounded the area again. Bai Lu had originally assumed that these creepy statues only knew how to chase based on instinct and had no intelligence worth mentioning. But to his surprise, in just a short moment, they had already evolved, somehow teaching themselves encirclement tactics and completely cutting off every possible route of escape. Bai Lu realized that the closer the statues got to him, the more they looked like him. That meant whatever finally hatched from them would probably look exactly like him as well. As the statues kept closing in, the fishy stench coming from them grew stronger and stronger. Bai Lu instantly understood that he and these statues were undergoing a mutual transformation. The residents of the town had probably entered the incubation stage long ago as well. At that moment, the players in the lobby looked at the scene with complete disdain. They started mocking him, saying that danger was already right in front of him, yet he was still calmly analyzing things. He had even bought a pile of useless projectors earlier. Was he planning to play a movie for the mermaid statues? Some even sneered that his perfect sanity score was completely wasted, and they had thought this rookie was actually impressive. Meanwhile, on another screen, a player holding a torch had already successfully broken through. Everyone immediately shifted their attention and began praising him wildly, saying that this was what a real seed player looked like. After all, the statues were naturally afraid of light, and a flaming torch was practically the perfect god-tier weapon against them. Combined with that player's extremely high combat stats, he would definitely make it onto the rising star ranking in the future. The chubby player beside them was especially regretful, saying he never should have given tip points to that guy Bai. It was a complete waste of points. Just as everyone was looking down on this rookie player, Bai Lu inside the game slowly took out the three-dimensional projectors. Then he tossed them into the air. The 3 projectors fixed themselves on the left side, the right side, and behind him. Immediately after that, Bai Lu calmly took out the remote control. The instant he pressed the button, 3 holographic copies of Bai Lu appeared at 3 different angles. The players in the lobby burst into mocking laughter. In their eyes, even if the mermaid statues were not very smart and could not immediately tell the difference between a projection and a real person, they would quickly notice the problem. So they were certain this useless trick would last 10 minutes at most. On top of that, Bai Lu had only bought 1 high-powered flashlight. Although it could temporarily force the mermaid statues back, both its intimidation and offensive power were far inferior to a torch. This rookie Bai was probably dead for sure, but in the very next second, everyone was shocked to discover that the expressions of the mermaid statues on the screen had changed from vicious and twisted to absolute terror. A faint smile rose at the corner of Bai Lu's mouth. 1 definitely wasn't enough, but 4 should do it, because he had already seen through them. At their core, these things were monsters that feared light. Right then, the mermaid statue panel suddenly updated. Congratulations, player. You have discovered 2 major weaknesses of the mermaid statues: direct human eye contact and strong light exposure. Only 1 weakness remains before you complete the monster book entry and unlock the exclusive reward. Bai Lu remembered that the driver had said the mermaid fishing event only happened at night. And in this town famous for its mermaid wax figures, there were almost no statues visible on the streets during the day. But in dimly lit places like the hotel and the wax museum, they were everywhere and could even move freely. The answer was practically right in front of Bai Lu. They were afraid of light, especially strong light. Seeing the mermaid statues completely suppressed by the strong light and unable to move, the player lobby instantly exploded. Everyone wondered how projectors could possibly simulate strong light. It made no scientific sense, but someone immediately shot back. This is a game world. Why are you talking about science? Then, a careful player finally discovered the truth. According to the manual, the optical projectors had an emission rate as high as 80%. Only then did the players suddenly understand, and the ones who had mocked Bai Lu moments ago were all slapped in the face, on the spot. Some players even watched his move, and immediately bought 3 3D projectors themselves. This scene also made the people in the player lobby start sending tip points to Bai Lu's small screen. In just 1 minute, Bai Lu's popularity skyrocketed. He successfully secured a featured spot, appeared on the central lobby's public screen, and his viewer count began soaring like crazy. For a rookie, this was practically an unprecedented honor. Meanwhile, inside the game, Bai Lu had also successfully separated the old newspaper. Immediately after that, the system announced that the mission was complete. Successfully use the hot water pool to separate the old newspaper. Reward, 10 points. Current balance, 31 points. Would you like to purchase items? Bai Lu ignored the system prompt and focused on examining the separated newspaper pages. And it was not just 1 page. Bai Lu thought to himself that he had almost been fooled by the system prompt. There was clearly another hidden layer underneath. This game really knew how to screw with players. With so many notices in front of him, it was obvious that the number of missing people was not small. Judging from the content of these newspapers, the earliest tourist disappearances could be traced back to last year, right when the Siren Wax Museum had just been completed. Almost every month, tourists went missing. At first, the cases were accompanied by robbery, but later, they became pure disappearances. It seemed Mayor Harris had used plenty of methods to suppress these cases, until last month, when they finally could no longer be covered up and the town's tourism business was badly affected. After finishing all this, he noticed his 3 companions staring fixably at a huge water tank. Bai Liu had just returned to the main hall of the wax museum, but the scene in front of him made him freeze on the spot. Inside the water tank, a mermaid was floating quietly in the water, as if it were asleep.